Lovely fireflies, welcome back to ASMR Firefly. Let me know if you don't like the sound of the rings hitting against each other whilst I do the finger flutterings, and I'll take off my rings when I film. But yes, welcome back. I am so happy you could join me today. So, today is a nice simple video because it's too hot for me to use my brain on anything more technical. But I will be doing a reading you to sleep video today. So as you've probably seen from the thumbnail, I'm going to be reading One Day, which a lot of you probably recognize the title of this book because it was recently made into a TV show on Netflix, but obviously it was also previously a movie. Now, I personally haven't seen the movie, the TV show, or even read the book. I've had this book for years and I've not got around to reading it, but I've heard really good things, so I thought we could read maybe a couple chapters depending on how long they are. And if you do like this video, then perhaps I can make it into a bit of a series, and we can get through the book together. How's that sound? And if I keep looking slightly to my right, it's because my viewfinder's there, and I have to keep an eye on the fact that my mic is picking up sound because I've been having some really bad technical issues where I'll film a whole video and it's not recorded anything, and I'm just like stressed. So yeah, let's get started. So let's start with some tapping first, obviously. Also, I just realised that my camera tells me how many more hours left of footage I can film with the SD card I have in. But luckily I have a hard drive because I transfer everything from my camera to my laptop. Anyways, I eventually transfer everything from my laptop to the hard drive, so I can just delete the footage that's on the SD card and then have space and not have to buy a new SD card. And besides, everything gets uploaded to YouTube anyways. It's not like it's memory, but it's also not, and because it's all up on YouTube, it's like I can just relive it all through there. So I also occasionally delete very old footage off my hard drive as well, just to keep constant storage. Excuse the fact that I'm wearing a top you've probably seen in a lot of videos, but I'll confess I'm literally just in my pajamas right now. I haven't left the house. I've just been at home with my son, and it's too hot, honestly, to get dressed just to film when I'm just gonna get sweaty and make my clothes dirty. So yeah. That's a good sound. It smells really nice. I don't know why it kind of has a perfumey smell. I don't keep my books near perfume. I also don't really read books much now. I read on my Kindle. So I should just say I don't read hard copy books much because I read on my Kindle. I'm gonna read the blurb. You can live your whole life not realizing that what you're looking for is right in front of you. 15th of July 1988. Emma and Dexter meet on the night of their graduation. Tomorrow they must go One Day by David Nichols. So this is, I don't know if it's part of the book or not, but I'm going to read it because it's in the book, right? What are days for? Days are where we live. They come and they wake us time and time over. They are to be happy in. Where can we live but days? Solving that question brings the priest and the doctor in their long coats running over the fields. Philip Larkin, Days. Okay. Part 1, 1988 to 1992, early 20s. That was a memorable day to me, for it made great changes in me, but it is the same with any life. Imagine one selected day struck out of it and think how different its course would have been. Pause. You who read this and think for a long moment of the long chain of iron or gold, of thorns or flowers that would never have bound you, but for the formation of the first link on that memorable day. Charles Dickens, Great Expectations. So, Chapter 1, The Future. Friday, 15th of July, 1988. Rankeller Street, Edinburgh. I suppose the important thing is to make some sort of difference, she said. You know, actually change something. What, like change the world, you mean? Not the whole entire world, just a little bit around you. They lay in silence for a moment, bodies curled around each other in the single bed. Then both began to laugh in low, pre-dawn voices. Can't believe I just said that, she groaned. Sounds a bit corny, doesn't it? A bit corny. I'm trying to be inspiring. I'm trying to lift your grubby soul for the great adventure that lies ahead of you. She turned to face him. Not that you need it. I expect you've got your future nicely mapped out. Very much. Probably got a little flowchart somewhere or something. Hardly. So what are you going to do then? What's the great plan? Well, my parents are going to pick up my stuff, dump it at theirs, then I'll spend a couple of days in their flat in London, see some friends, then France. Very nice. Then China maybe, see what that's all about. Then maybe on to India, travel around there for a bit. Travelling, she sighed. So predictable. What's wrong with travelling? Avoiding reality, more like. I think reality is overrated, he said, in the hope that this might come across as dark and charismatic. She sniffed. It's alright, I suppose, for those who can afford it. Why not just say, I'm going on holiday for 2 years? It's the same thing. Because travel broadens the mind, he said, rising onto one elbow and kissing her. Oh, I think you're probably a bit too broad-minded as it is, she said, turning her face away. For the moment, at least. They settled again on the pillow. Anyway, I didn't mean what are you doing next month. I mean the future, when you're, I don't know, she paused as if conjuring up some fantastical idea, like a fifth dimension. 40 or something. What do you want to be when you're 40? 40? He too seemed to be struggling with the concept. Don't know. Am I allowed to say rich? Just so shallow. Alright then. Famous. He began to nuzzle at her neck. Bit morbid this, isn't it? It's not morbid. It's exciting. Exciting. He was imitating her voice now, her soft Yorkshire accent, trying to make her sound daft. She got this a lot. Posh boys doing funny voices, as if there was something unusual and quaint about an accent. And not for the first time she felt a reassuring shiver of dislike for him. She shrugged herself away until her back was pressed against the cool of the wall. Yes, exciting. We're meant to be excited, aren't we? All those possibilities. It's like the Vice-Chancellor said. The doors of opportunities flung wide. Yours are the names in tomorrow's newspapers. Not very likely. So, what, are you excited then? Me? God, no. I'm crapping myself. Me too. he turned suddenly and reached for the cigarettes on the floor by the side of the bed, as if to steady his nerves. 40 years old. 40. Hell. Smiling at his anxiety, she decided to make it worse. So what will you be doing when you're 40? He lit his cigarette thoughtfully. Well, the thing is, M. Who's M? People call you M. I've heard them. Yeah, friends call me M. So can I call you M? Go on then, Dex. So I've given this whole growing old thing some thought, and I've come to the good decision that I'd like to stay exactly as I am right now. Dexter Mayhew. She peered up at him through her fringe as he leant against the cheap button vinyl headboard, and even without her spectacles on, it was clear why he might want to stay exactly this way. Eyes closed, the cigarette glued languidly to his lower lip, the dawn light warming the side of his face through the red filter of the curtains. He had the knack of looking perpetually posed for a photograph. Emma Morley thought handsome a silly 19th century word, but there really was no other word for it except perhaps beautiful. He had one of those faces where you are aware of the bones beneath the skin, as if even his bare skull would be attractive, a fine nose slightly shiny with grease, and dark skin beneath the eyes that looked almost bruised, a badge of honour from all the smoking and late nights spent deliberately losing at strip poker with girls from Bedales. There was something feline about him, eyebrows fine, mouth pouty in a self-conscious way, lips a shade too dark and full but dry and chapped now, and rouged with Bulgarian red wine. Gratifyingly, his hair was terrible, short at the back and sides, but with an awful little quiff at the front. Whatever gel he used had worn off, and now the quiff looked pert and fluffy, like a silly little hat. Still with his eyes closed, he exhaled smoke through his nose. Clearly, he knew he was being looked at because he tucked one hand beneath his armpit, punching up his pectorals and biceps. Where did the muscles come from? Certainly not sporting activity, unless you counted skinny dipping and playing pool. Probably it was just the kind of good health that was passed down in the family, along with the stocks and shares and the good furniture. Handsome then, or beautiful even, with his paisley boxer shorts pulled down to his hip bones, and somehow here, in a single bed, in a tiny rented room at the end of 4 years of college. Handsome. Who do you think you are? Jane Eyre. Grow up, be sensible, don't get carried away. She plucked the cigarette from his mouth. I can imagine you at 40, she said, a hint of malice in her voice. I can picture it right now. He smiled without opening his eyes. Go on then. Alright, she shuffled up the bed, the duvet tucked beneath her armpits. You're in this sports car with the roof down in Kensington or Chelsea, or one of those places, and the amazing thing about this car is it's silent, because all the cars would be silent in, 2006. He scrunched his eyes to do the sum. 2004. And this car is hovering 6 inches off the ground down the King's Road, and you've got this little paunch tucked under the leather steering wheel, like a little pillow, and those backless gloves on, thinning hair and no chin. You're a big man in a small car, with a tan like a basted turkey. So shall we change the subject then? And there's this woman next to you in sunglasses, your third, no, fourth wife, very beautiful, a model. No, an ex-model, 23. You met her while she was draped on the bonnet of a car at a motor show in Nice or something, and she's stunning and thick as hell. Well, that's nice. Any kids? No kids, just 3 divorces, and it's a Friday in July, and you're heading off to some house in the country, and in the tiny boot of your hover car are tennis rackets and croquet mallets, and a hamper full of fine wines and South African grapes and poor little quails and asparagus, and the wind's in your widow's peak, and you're feeling very, very pleased with yourself. And wife number 3, 4, whatever, smiles at you with about 200 shiny white teeth, and you smile back and try not to think about the fact that you have nothing, absolutely nothing, to say to each other. She came to an abrupt halt. Maybe I should go then, if I'm so shallow and corrupt. No, don't go, she said, a little too quickly. It's 4 in the morning. He shuffled up the bed until his face was a few inches from hers. I don't know where you get this idea of me. You barely know me. I know the type. The type. I've seen you hanging around modern languages, praying at each other, throwing black tie dinner parties. I don't even own black tie, and I certainly don't pray. Yachting your way round the med in the long holes, rah rah rah. So if I'm so awful, his hand was on her hip now, which you are, then why are you sleeping with me? His hand was on the warm, soft flesh of her thigh. Actually, I don't think I have slept with you, have I? Well, that depends, he leant in and kissed her. Define your terms. His hand was on the base of her spine, his leg slipping between hers. By the way, she mumbled, her mouth pressed against his. What? He felt her legs snake around his, pulling him closer. You need to brush your teeth. I don't mind if you don't. It's really horrible, she laughed. You taste of wine and cigarettes. Well, that's alright then, so do you. Her head snapped away, breaking off the kiss. Do I? I don't mind. I like wine and cigarettes. Won't be a sec. She flung the duvet back, clambering over him. Where are you going now? He placed his hand on her bare back. Just the bog, she said, retrieving her spectacles from the pile of books by the bed. Large, black NHS frame standard issue. The bog. The bog. Sorry, I'm not familiar. She stood, one arm across her chest, careful to keep her back to him. Don't go away, she said, patting out the room, hooking 2 fingers into the elastic of her underpants to pull the material down at the top of her thighs. He exhaled through his nose and shuffled up the bed, taking in the shabby rented room, knowing with absolute confidence that somewhere in amongst the art postcards and photocopied posters for angry plays, there would be a photograph of Nelson Mandela, like some dreamy ideal boyfriend. Okay, just a quick note. If you guys have read the book or seen the show and are wondering why some of the language is different or I'm missing bits, it's because if I'm not sure if it's going to be appropriate for YouTube or not, I'm going to change the word or skip bits. So yeah, just so you're aware. In his last 4 years, he had seen any number of bedrooms like this, dotted around the city like crime scenes, rooms where you were never more than 6 feet from a Nina Simone album. And though he'd rarely seen the same bedroom twice, it was all too familiar. The burnt out night lights and desolate pot plants, the smell of washing powder and cheap ill-fitting sheets. She had that arty girl's passion for photo montage too. Flash-lit snaps of college friends and family jumbled in amongst the Chagals and Vermeers and Kandinskis, the Che Guevaras and Woody Allens and Samuel Beckett's. Nothing here was neutral, everything displayed an allegiance or a point of view. The room was a manifesto, and with a sigh, Dexter recognized her as one of those girls who use pourquoi as a term of abuse. He could understand why fascists might have negative connotations, but he liked the word pourquoi and all that it implied. I hope I'm pronouncing that word right. Security, travel, nice food, and good manners, ambition. What was he meant to be apologizing for? He watched the smoke curl from his mouth, feeling for an ashtray. He found a book at the side of the bed. The unbearable lightness of being, spine creased at the erotic bits. The problem with these fiercely individualistic girls was that they were all exactly the same. Another book. A man who mistook his wife for a hat. Silly bloody fool, he thought, confident that it was not a mistake he would ever make. At 23, Dexter Mayhew's vision of his future was no clearer than Emma Morley's. He hoped to be successful, to make his parents proud and to sleep with more than one woman at the same time. But how to make these all compatible? He wanted to feature in magazine articles and hoped one day for a retrospective of his work, without having any clear notion of what that work might be. He wanted to live life to the extreme, but without any mess or complications. He wanted to live life in such a way that if a photograph were taken at random, it would be a cool photograph. Things should look right. Fun, they're his escape. From the bathroom came the warning rattle and bang of an ancient toilet cistern, and he hurriedly replaced the book, finding beneath the bed a small yellow Coleman's mustard tin that he flipped open to confirm that, yes, it did contain condoms, along with the small grey remains of a joint, like a mouse dropping, with the possibility of sex and drugs. In the small yellow tin, he felt hopeful again, and decided that he might stay a little longer at least. In the bathroom, Emma Morley wiped the crescents of toothpaste from the corner of her mouth and wondered if this was all a terrible mistake. Here she was, after 4 romantically barren years, finally in bed with someone she really liked, had liked since she'd first seen him at a party in 1984, and in just a few hours he'd be gone. Forever, probably. He was hardly likely to ask her to go to China with him, and besides, she was boycotting China. And he was alright, wasn't he? Dexter Mayhew. In truth, she suspected he wasn't all that bright, and a little too pleased with himself, but he was popular and funny, and, no point finding it, very handsome. So why was she being so stroppy and sarcastic? Why couldn't she just be self-confident and fun, like those scrubbed bounty girls he usually hung around with? She saw the dawn light at the tiny bathroom window. Sobriety. Scratching out her awful hair with her fingertips, she pulled a face, then yanked the chain of the ancient toilet cistern and headed back into the room. Okay, we'll finish the chapter. From the bed, Dexter watched her appear in the doorway, wearing the gown and mortarboard that they'd been obliged to hire for the graduation ceremony. A leg hooked mock seductively around the doorframe, a rolled degree certificate in one hand. She peered over her spectacles and pulled the mortarboard down low over one eye. What do you think? Suits you. I like the jaunty angle. Now take it off and come back to bed. No way. 30 quid this cost me. I'm going to get my money's worth. She swelled the gown like a vampire's cape. Dexter grabbed at a corner, but she swiped at him with the rolled up certificate before sitting on the edge of the bed, folding her spectacles and shrugging off her gown. He had one last glimpse of her naked back and the curve of her breasts before they disappeared beneath a black t-shirt that demanded unilateral nuclear disarmament now. That's that, he thought. Nothing was less conducive to sexual desire than a long black political t-shirt, except perhaps that Tracy Chapman album. Resigned, he picked a degree certificate off the floor, rolled the elastic band along the length of the scroll, and announced, English and History, Joint Honours, First Class. Read it and weep, Tutu boy. She growled for the scroll. Hey, careful with that. Getting it framed, are you? My mum and dad are having it turned into wallpaper. She rolled it tightly, taping the ends. Laminated placemats. My mum's having it tattooed across her back. Where are your parents anyway? Oh, they're just next door. He flinched. Really? She laughed. Not really. They drove back to Leeds. Dad thinks hotels are for toffs. The scroll was stashed beneath the bed. Now budge up, she said, nudging him to the cool side of the mattress. He allowed her in, sliding one arm somewhat awkwardly beneath her shoulders, kissing her neck speculatively. She turned to look at him, her chin tucked in. Dex, let's just cuddle, shall we? Of course, if you want, he said gallantly, though in truth he had never really seen the point of cuddling. Cuddling was for great aunts and teddy bears. Cuddling gave him cramp. Best now to admit defeat and get home as soon as possible. But she was settling her head on his shoulder territorially, and they lay like this, rigid and self-conscious for some time before she said, Couldn't believe I used the word cuddle. Bloody hell, cuddle. Sorry about that. He smiled. It's alright, at least it wasn't snuggle. Snuggle's pretty bad. Or smooch. Smooch is awful. Let's promise never ever to smooch, she said, regretting the remark at once. Well, together. There seemed little chance of that. They lapsed into silence again. They had been talking and kissing for the last 8 hours, and both had that deep whole-body fatigue that arrives at dawn. Blackbirds were singing in the overgrown back garden. I love that sound, he mumbled into her hair. his answer, she curled closer into him. We should get some sleep. What for? Nothing tomorrow. No deadlines, no work. Just a whole of our lives stretching ahead of us, she said, sleepily taking in the wonderful warm, stale smell of him, and at the same time feeling a ripple of anxiety pass across her shoulders at the thought of it. Independent adult life. She didn't feel like an adult. She was in no way prepared. It was as if a fire alarm had gone off in the middle of the night, and she was standing on the street with her clothes bundled in her arms. If she wasn't learning, what was she doing? How would she fill the days? She had no idea. It's getting really hot. I might not be able to do the whole chapter because I am sweltering. The trick of it, she told herself, is to be courageous and bold and make a difference. Not change the world exactly, just the bit around you. Go out there with your double fit first, your passion and your new Smith Corona electric typewriter, and work hard at something. Change lives through art maybe. Write beautifully. Cherish your friends. Stay true to your principles. Live passionately and fully and well. Experience new things. Love and be loved if at all possible. Eat sensibly. Stuff like that. It wasn't much in the way of a guiding philosophy, and not one you could share, least of all with this man, but it was what she believed, and so far the first few hours of independent adult life had been alright. Perhaps in the morning after tea and aspirin, she might even find the courage to ask him back to bed. They'd both be sober by then, which wouldn't make things any easier, but she might even enjoy it. The few times that she'd gone to bed with boys, she had always ended up giggling or weeping, and it might be nice to try for something in between. She wondered if there were condoms in the mustard tin. No reason why there shouldn't be. They were there last time she looked. February 1987. Vince, a hairy-backed chemical engineer who had blown his nose on a pillowcase. Happy days, happy days. I think I might finish there. I think there's like a page and a half, or maybe even two, I'm not sure. But I am getting quite hot, and I have some other videos to film for YouTube, not for YouTube, for TikTok and Instagram. And I am getting into live streaming, so I want to do like a practice run on TikTok. So I need to have a little bit of fan time to cool back down before I do those, because it's very, very, very hot. I've been saying it, but honestly, UK summers are so humid, especially if you're in an old